Hey folks, welcome to the latest episode of Vinyl and Vision. Here we are with episode 76. Today's very special guest is the band T-Tops. T-Tops hailing from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's, Pat Waters on lead vocal and guitar, Mike Koch on drums, and Matt Schor on bass. What you're listening to is the first song off of their latest record, Burn the River. Well, at the end of the episode, they'll be playing a short segment of their song Static Scream, also off of the same record. It's a banger of a record, as you can tell by listening to it. Great band, absolutely wonderful conversation we had, which is kicking off this noise rock series that I'm starting, highlighting bands that are performing at No Coast Fest 2022. And I was honored to speak with them and about a fantastic and amazing record that is also near and dear to my own heart as well. And we get into it. Here it is, folks. Thank you very much. Please do all the things you do with the internet is what we ask here. Like, share, comment, subscribe, rate, review, all of those things. And we'll see you again very soon. What's up? T-Tops, how are you?
Good. All right. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Let me see if I can get this straight. So, on the left, as according to me, in the glasses, it's you, Pat.
Yeah.
In the middle, you must be Mike.
Yes, sir.
Mike Koch, drums.
Cook.
Cook. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
And then
okay.
Matt Schor. Is that how you pronounce that?
Yes.
Bass.
Yep.
Oh, cool, guys. All right, I got it. Well, it's nice to meet you. How you guys doing?
You too.
Pretty good. We're checking out of my house and making hamburgers.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. So, I invited you guys on to discuss an album that's important to you. Pat, did you make this decision by yourself, or did you include everybody?
No, I definitely asked both of them. We discussed it for a while, but I think we all sort of settled on that one. There were a couple other ways we could have gone, but
Sure.
I feel like that one probably meant something to each of us.
Yeah.
At the time.
I think it's an amazing choice. I mean, I know that for me, I'm 42, so that album was integral to my young development. I mean, it came out when I was like 13. So how about you guys?
Yeah, I'm the same age. I had that was actually the first Nirvana record I kind of got into. I sort of missed the whole Nevermind thing. I was a little bit too young. When I first heard, I remember hearing the when Nirvana played that like Lithium on one of the movie awards or whatever, and Chris threw the bass and hit himself. But I remember seeing that video for a while, but I still it didn't really click with me. I knew it sounded cool. But then when I the Heart Shaped Box video, and then getting the In Utero on cassette from one of those what was it, the BMG warehouse thing, you get Columbia House for
Sure.
7 cassettes for a penny or something. That was one of the first ones I got. From there on I was like, oh my god, this is so cool.
Yeah.
And I still feel this way, however many years later.
I agree. So what were you listening to at that time? I mean, obviously, you're around 13 years old.
I was just starting to get into, music, and even realized that it was a thing that, the songs you would hear on the radio, even if it was just bad, pop radio or top 40 or whatever, that there were whole albums behind the songs, and as you grow up and, learn things. So buying tapes, I mean, that was really one of the first ones that I, had, other than like recording things off the radio that were just like funny songs, I guess, that they might have been playing at the time.
Sure.
I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I really can't say I was into much before that.
Okay. That's cool. I mean, that's what I like to ask about these things because it's everyone's different how, kind of like what their introduction into music was like. Um, how about you, Mike? What's your experience with this album and the band Nirvana?
Well, as the drummer, it makes the record stands for itself because it's such a good drums record.
Oh yeah.
The Steve Albini production and Dave Grohl playing. And I think what did it for me was just I remember getting the CD when I'm pretty much the same age as Pat, and getting the CD and hearing Senseless Apprentice, the second song that starts with drums,
Mm-hmm.
and I just was obsessed with it after that.
Yeah.
Figuring out what is drums and how can you figure out how to play them.
Yeah, right. I mean, so you didn't have any experience playing any music at that point? You weren't playing with any instruments?
I actually was learning guitar at the time. So that guitar is my first instrument, but I've always just been listening to the drummer, and I think it's specifically because of that album and the drumming on that album.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's actually I don't play drums, but I like to play drums. Like I like to play around with them. And and the Nirvana albums are my go-to just for practice because they're just like they're fun, they're easy, they're just you hit so hard, it's great. And so Matt, how about yourself? What was your introduction like?
So I'm a little older. I'm 46.
Okay.
So I was in high school when Nevermind came out, and I think by the time In Utero came out, it was like a little dismissive of Nirvana, but like In Utero was the one that like you couldn't deny how good that record was, because I already moved on to like underground punk rock, garage punk. I was into like New Bomb Tarts and stuff by then, and all those like 90s garage punk bands. But like In Utero just it was different. It hit way harder, and
Sure.
even us, in kind of our high school being kind of jaded, we still, the friends that used to hang out with, we couldn't deny how good that record was.
Yeah. So I mean, you were saying how you were a little dismissive of In Utero, or at least like Nevermind when it came out. You were in high school. You already had a sense of like kind of what garage rock or punk rock music was, I think, or
Yeah, I mean, by the time I was in high school, I was listening to it was early '90s, so like Naked Ray Gun and Bad Religion and Misfits and Dead Kennedys and all the like gateway punk bands from that era. I mean, I already was aware of a lot of that stuff. And it was like stuff that you couldn't hear on MTV or anything, and kind of, that it was that underground kind of cred thing, and it was like, oh, I think that's why we were a little dismissive of a band like Nirvana at the time.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah, because like all the kids that used to make fun of us for listening to like punk rock in high school, a year later, they were wearing Nirvana T-shirts and like listening to Nirvana records. So it was a weird like cultural shift around that time, know.
Yeah.
But yeah, In Utero was the one that just like you couldn't deny how good it was, and it was also my introduction to like Steve Albini. So I do a lot of recording too. Actually record the T-Top stuff. So I was also into like some of the AMRAP stuff, like the stuff in Chicago. So I knew like Jesus Lizard as well at that time. So like that production style kind of stuck with me too, like the drum sounds. And even back then, I don't think I really knew, who was like behind the boards and who was doing the recordings. It's something I became aware of like a little bit later on, but it was definitely a formative experience as far as like the kind of aesthetic, the kind of like sonic aesthetic that I would be drawn to like later on in, you know, my
Sure.
musical career, so to speak, or whatever.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you didn't know who
Yeah.
Steve Albini was at the time, I mean, obviously this was a great introduction. And then, you know, as you get older and kind of develop and learn more about music and kind of explore more bands and stuff like that, you realize, oh, he's been all over all of these records, which are amazing. You know, obviously, Kurt Cobain was a huge proponent to advocate for the smaller bands. You know, he was always, I remember as being like an 11-year-old when Nevermind came out, thinking like, oh, this guy is so cool. He's like telling me about all of these bands that I should know about that he likes, you know, that I would have never heard about otherwise. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. And it leads into something like a bigger topic that I kind of wanted to talk to you about is the whole idea about noise rock. Like what is your thoughts on what noise rock is today?
I don't know, it's first of all, I don't, you know, it's hard for me to categorize. I don't like to, you know, try to pigeonhole something too much or try to define something, I guess, like too specifically as far as like, to me, you know, a rock band is a rock band. If there's a little bit of noise rock to it, like I'm not gonna, you know, put them in a whole different category, you know, or if there's like a little bit of noise, I'm really not even sure. I mean, it's a good question. I'm not really sure like what the definition of, you know, noise rock is, but you know, when you're listening to something and you hear like a little bit of extra, you know, noise and like there's some like screaming and something sounds like there's like either a pipe broken or, you know, water running that shouldn't be, like something, you know, with a bunch of static behind it. You know, that's kind of easy to point out as like noise rock.
So
you know,
there's
it's
a little
flattering
bit of
that,
a chaotic element to rock music.
yeah, definitely.
All right.
But it's like any other subgenre. It's hard to like, you know, you could argue, you know, for hours over like who fits in what category, but
right. Right. Well, because what I'm learning, you know, I've been obviously listening to like all or, you know, good portion of the bands that are going to be participating, performing at the No Coast Fest in Texas, that they're all kind of different, you know. I mean, like as far as like, you know, calling this a noise rock fest, which, you know, I'm not opposed to. I consider myself to like noise rock music.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to see kind of all of the different interpretations that these bands can kind of fall under this, you know, this you know, uniform umbrella.
Yeah.
I think noise rock as a term is interesting because if you take the ratio of noise to rock in most of those bands, the rock is way higher than the noise part. Unless you're talking about Sonic Youth or something who literally makes noise.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like people used to always call the Jesus Lizard noise rock, and to me they're like Led Zeppelin. I mean, they're incredible musicians, and it's very musical and not noisy. So I always just thought it was interesting.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So, you know, I was reading a lot about Nirvana over the past a week, and it just I found it interesting that at the time Nirvana broke, and they kind of coined, not them specifically, but they were kind of like pigeonholed into this category of grunge, which, you know, now we don't ever really talk about, but it became synonymous with them and almost like every other rock band at that time that was kind of you know, peers with Nirvana. Do you think noise rock is like the modern day grunge equivalent?
Yeah.
Really?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, but again, that's all just what somebody else wants to call it, I guess.
I don't think noise rock is new. Like noise rock was around in the '90s, though.
Yeah, noise rock
all that AMRAP
existed, and yeah, like the AMRAP stuff.
Right. Was it being called noise rock back in the 90s? Because I don't remember it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think it always has been. I mean, I'm, you know, for me, like looking back on that stuff, you know, I learned about all those bands later because, you know, I kind of grew up away from anywhere where anyone was listening to anything remotely, you know, decent. Right. So it took me a while to catch on, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that term was being used, you know.
I want to say I remember it being used.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back then, but I mean, it's not the same that it is now. bands now, one of the things I've noticed is like a band like Mets or something like that.
Sure.
They have this knack, like the good ones. They have this knack for pulling all these different influences, and you can hear really specific stuff in all their, in their music, and they just throw it all in a blender, and like something comes out, and it's so like well put together, but also you can hear like you can hear all the 90s noise rock stuff, the AMRAP stuff. You can hear the melody, you can hear like the post-punk elements in there. You can hear like
Right.
Hooks.
Yeah.
That's what impresses me about like bands that are doing it well is how seamlessly they can combine all these different elements from all these like different genres that like might seemingly not have anything like not a relation to each other. I mean, like Wire, like a band like a post-punk band like Wire thrown together in a blender with like Jesus Lizard or something like that. Like you would think that wouldn't make sense, but somehow they pull it off, and that impresses me.
I always thought grunge was a weird term, anyway. I mean, especially after you sort of see some interviews or read some things about some of those bands or like watch Hype or whatever, and they realize that like grunge was just sort of like a tagline to sell more records and more clothes and stuff. Because none of the people that were being called grunge really seem to love the phrase anyway.
Yeah, well, I guess it's the whole idea of like pigeonholing any band into like lumping them into a category like that, and grunge of all things, it was just kind of like this. It didn't seem to mean anything. I don't even know exactly where the term came from. I mean, do you remember like where maybe grunge was like
Something with
kind of
Mudhoney. Was the next Mark on?
Some kind of sub pop something.
They were either the first ones to use it or the first ones that got described as
Actually, I always thought it was kind of a good term for like bands. It kind of is pretty does a good job of describing what a lot of music kind of sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of led you to know what to expect if someone said, "Oh, they're a grunge band,"
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's like if someone says ska, you know what it's going to sound like.
Right. Well, so what about noise rock? Do you think that it's a kind of a good catch-all for what you guys are like doing now?
I think noise rock is a good term for something that is a style, like bands that have so many styles that it's impossible to like. But then their kind of main common denominator is just like independence. Putting your music out independently and playing their own shows and all that stuff.
Well, that's an interesting point because actually, one of the questions I had for you about this album, because I loved it too, and I was listening to it again recently, and I was kind of like realizing that okay, so I listened to this when I was 13. I didn't know anything about punk rock music or noise rock music for the most part back then, and listening to it now with kind of like a more fresh ear. I was wondering, do you think that this is like the first noise rock album to ever break mainstream?
Probably, I guess. I mean, nothing else this noisy was that popular until this.
You can make some arguments that Jimi Hendrix is pretty noisy.
Yeah, that's true.
He makes a lot of noise,
especially live. Yeah,
that's true.
Is this record that noisy?
But no one ever categorizes Jimi Hendrix as noise rock. They might say psychedelic at best.
Yeah,
I mean, do you think Nirvana could be a noise rock band?
I would say they have about as much of a noisy element as like Jimi Hendrix, like his Electric Ladyland does.
Yeah,
most of Nirvana is like pretty tuneful and hooky, and like they kind of dip into the noisy stuff. At least in Utero, there's like one or two songs that are almost sound like token, like noisy songs, like the
Tourette's.
Yeah. They almost sound,
like Milk It or just Very Ape, even one of those two.
Yeah, but there's a pretty strong sense of melody too, and pretty like good songwriting.
Yeah, there sure is.
I think that's more of the defining element in Nirvana than the noisy stuff's just seasoning. They just kind of throw on top,
Yeah, I mean, there's really not even all that much like extra noise, I don't think, thrown in. I mean, it's a noisy record for a major label, giant, biggest band in the world at the time.
Right.
Record. I mean, it's pretty noisy from that aspect, but when you compare it to like, Jesus Lizard or, some other, AMRAP bands at the time, it's not all that noisy,
The Butthole Surfers, they get pretty famous with that one song too.
Yeah, that was actually
a breakthrough of noise.
I would say there's more noise on those two major labels.
Butthole Surfers.
Yeah, but those weren't nearly as popular as this one.
No,
true. People would consider that a one-hit wonder, I suppose.
Yeah, people that only know them, I guess, from that video.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and it was different style too. I mean, like that song "Pepper," I believe it was what it was called, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't really representative of what the Butthole Surfers did.
No.
In reality,
Yeah, that's why they didn't get more famous. People delved into their back catalog and they're like horrified.
Yeah, right.
Awesome.
You found a lot of Butthole Surfer CDs on the used racks when you went to the record stores.
Yeah, definitely.
So I mean, like, now, see, because I was looking at this at a very different way, and I wonder if you can kind of like see where I'm coming from. But like the whole coined grunge term in the '90s, and then all this explosion of all these bands from Seattle specifically that kind of like heralded all the praise from that label. I feel like it's kind of juxtaposition to what noise rock is now. I mean, do you think like noise rock has the potential to like have at least one band from the noise rock demographic to sail to the top and actually like achieve mainstream success?
No.
What about Idols? Do you think they did?
I think
they're like a thing?
Yeah, they kind of fit, don't they?
I wouldn't
Idols
consider
is noise rock.
Yeah.
Kinda.
What's mainstream success too? Like,
I would say that I hear noise rock elements of Idols. Yeah.
I agree.
Elements.
can Idols get as big as Machine Gun Kelly?
Oof. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they seem to be doing pretty good already. I mean, it's weird. It's kind of hard.
My question, like, what's your measurement though for mainstream success though?
Mainstream success, I would imagine.
You're talking about an iconic record that people talk about 20 years later, or you just like a successful record for the time?
Yeah,
I think successful record for the time. Like Pepper by the Butthole Surfers is a good example. Like you consider it a one-hit wonder because they had that one song that a lot of people knew because it had radio airplay, MTV airplay. And so it kind of reached a broader audience. Nirvana, I mean, Nirvana was huge. Nirvana was like the top tier of, musical success. I consider success to be kind of, I mean, I consider it like being able to live off of it. Like if you can do that as your job.
That sounds fair, yeah.
But I don't think that that's like a mainstream success. I think mainstream success, you have to have at least like a gold record or something like that, which means 500,000 sales at least in the US.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it does seem like maybe people are a little bit more timid now than they used to be 20 years ago, as far as accepting more extreme music.
Yeah.
But
did you say timid?
They're growing up, and I have faith. I have faith in people growing up that they're going to.
Yeah,
the torch will get past them and they'll do something good with it.
Right.
I'm a little more pessimistic now. I don't think.
I think there are great bands out there. I think
there are. But as far as mainstream success, like
but those great bands getting huge or even like
mainstream success. If you want to talk about like whatever, a lot of plays on Spotify or selling a lot of records or whatever. It's so mainstream music is so formulaic and watered down, and, focus group tested.
Yeah,
it was
like
that in 1991 too, and that's when Nirvana came along. That's why,
Yeah, but that's part of the reason they're so cool. It was such an organic thing to break through all of the bullshit.
It was a different environment too. It was not quite.
And plus, people were ready. At the time.
I don't think there'll ever be another band like Nirvana, just like bust everything wide open. I don't think it's possible.
No, I don't think it's possible at all.
Okay. Yeah, that's
bands
exactly
can get big, sure, and play, to several thousand, seats or whatever standing a night, but they're not gonna get
to become the biggest rock band in the world. I don't know, some like a bunch of like, punk kids from some nowhere town are gonna like blow it up like that again.
Right.
I just don't see it happening.
Right. You know what? You actually kind of opened my eyes to something. Is that I don't know if like it's possible for any band to really succeed at a massive like mainstream success level, like because it's either you're like like Post Malone and like Jay-Z like high up there, because then even like the successful bands right now, like successful noise rock bands as of the moment. You mentioned Idols, you mentioned Mets, um, Lightning Bolt's probably a good example. Like these bands that can, pack a pretty good sized room. They, obviously seem to be selling a good amount of records, but they'll and they can live off of their work. I don't know if any band can actually kind of get past that point anymore. You know?
You know how it could happen if they end up on like some TV show.
Yeah,
like
or the King Kong barbecue show song. It's like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need like some kind of freak like break, like the way
Right.
Metallica put that Metallica show on that episode of Stranger Things, and all of a sudden like everybody cared about Metallica.
Right. Yeah, but they already
That
have. They
could
were
happen.
already
Kate Bush.
mass. Kate Bush. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. It can
No
revive.
one never not cared about Metallica.
Well, yeah, but
Some people would argue, that there was plenty of people that, always admired Kate Bush, but I'm not one of those people. I don't know.
That's sure. But I have good memories of Kate Bush. I like Kate Bush.
I don't remember anything about her really, actually, to be honest. I mean, I can't name one of her songs for the life of me.
I can't.
Running Up That Hill is the one that everyone loves so much. And the entire Lionheart record is pretty good. I would listen to it.
Oh, Lionheart? Is that what
I took mushrooms one time and drove across northern Minnesota. I listened to a bunch of Kate Bush. And I got good memories of it. So.
Oh, that's why you're
got a place in my heart. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good memory.
Thanks.
All right. Well, why don't we just get into this record a little bit? We're not going to go over the entire album. Just got a few like bullet points to mention of some tracks down the list. But the first song is "Serve the Servants." Great opening track, right?
Yeah. I love that song so much because of the drumstick intro that they left in. I've loved that since the first time I ever heard it when I was 12, 13, whatever I was. I don't know. Yeah. I just love that you can hear and click the song in.
I agree. And there's a lot of like little weird, like, in-room noises that you hear, a lot of like weird little mistakes that would normally be kind of brushed out of a major release like this.
Yeah.
But that is a great one. Let's see. What I have here is that John Mulvey of the NME wrote that any album that kicks off with a song as beautifully bludgeoned as Serve the Servants and a line as tellingly funny as Teenage Angst has paid off well, now I'm bored and old, must have something going for it. But here, at least, Nirvana metaphorically wipe their arses of old Nevermind sleeves with a little wit to leaven the whinging bitterness. That's a mouthful.
Wow, I'm gonna get this guy very much.
Whinging bitterness.
Yeah. Also, so essentially, because Nirvana wanted to, kind of get away from the whole Nevermind thing and kind of that clean, polished sound. They wanted to get a raw and more a sound more true to what of the style of music they wanted to be in, And
yeah, it was intentional, for them to break away, and make that type of a statement.
Absolutely right, and then they did it, and so this is the perfect. This critic was kind of just praising that as that they did it. So now I know that there's no no stigma attached to your band that you feel like you need to shed, but how does your latest album, Staring at a Static Screen, compared to the last?
This one's way better, I think. I don't know.
The drumming on this record is so much better. The drumming on the last record is just unlistenable.
Yeah, it's all around, top to bottom.
Maverick's different. It sounds incredible. Yeah.
It really is basically like a different band.
I mean, the band's gone through several, lineups and things since then, and You mean just since the last LP? Or
Yeah.
the LP was the first thing we put out in 2015. And we had a few like EPs on the way. But yeah, I don't know. I think we were able to, with this one, I don't know how to say this, not sound, weird, but like realize more of like the vision of like, what, I want to go for as far as like, louder, noisier drums, and plus drums and, everything, just production and, just all of it. But also we had, a lot of songs, ready to go. More songs, I think, ready to go at the time we recorded this one, which now has been probably 3 or 4 years ago, possibly. I'm not even sure. But the first one was a little more hastily strewn together, I think, just to try to get something out when we had the opportunity to. And looking back, it was, maybe we would have thrown a few different things or more things on there. But
also, just to be clear too, we were totally joking about like saying the drumming and the production. that was a joke. No, we're not trying to throw shade on.
This is the first record I played on. That's why.
Yeah.
Right. Well, because I thought, I think there was a band change, right? Like, did you guys all play? You guys didn't play on the last record.
No. The Static Screen record is the only one the three of us are on.
Okay, even in comparison to the splits and EPs you did?
Yeah, those were all with different drummers and different bass player.
Okay.
I mean, I think there's, like I said, I think the songs on Static Screen are a little more maybe thought out and well put together, since, if we're comparing to the first record.
Right.
Didn't you say you were listening to like a lot of sleep or like you were trying to write like
not during for the one
for the whole
10-inch, I think sleep may have influenced the song on the 10-inch record, but
I think it's just more dynamics on it, kind more quiet and loud as opposed to maybe some of the older stuff that's just all loud.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's a great record. Let me just start off by saying that. I mean,
thank you.
I've been listening to it, and it's an awesome record. And as a matter of fact, that reminds me, are you guys in fact going to be opening the festival?
I believe so. Yeah, I think we play first on Thursday night.
Wow, that's kind of a lot of pressure, isn't it?
On him.
Yeah.
First band on the big fest.
No,
right?
I mean, I'm looking at it more like fun than pressure.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
sure.
think it'll just be. I mean, at this point, I kind of. I hope everything goes well, but I mean, I'm very pessimistic, and I'm, in my head, I'm thinking there's, I'm just imagining all the million things that can even prevent us from getting there,
Oh yeah.
Before I can allow myself to worry about actually playing it.
Right. Well, I mean, I think your music's awesome. I think that you guys are an extremely exciting band. So I think that having the opening slot is probably the best way to kind of kick off the show,
Yeah, I'm happy with it. We're just happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes me more excited when you say that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, seems to be a lot of excitement about the fest.
Yeah, I think so. I
mean, great bands playing.
There are, and you know what, and that's kind of like goes back to what I was saying before about like the whole like noise rock thing. Is that, when has there ever even been a noise rock festival in the past?
Yeah, AMREP, I guess, has done some, things out in Minneapolis or whatever, but and I think Jeff's been doing this specific one for, I don't know how often it happened during, the 2 heavy COVID years, but I think he did it. I think this is at least the 3rd, maybe. I'm not 100% sure. Time he's done this.
I'll have to ask him myself, but I'm not sure. But yeah, it's definitely early into it, and I just think it's great that it has the possibility to have a festival, that you can actually even do that.
Yeah, and being that it's 4 days, I don't think it's ever been 4 days before. So I think he's always capped it at 3. But he's put on the extra day this year. But
yeah,
but yeah, it's if everything goes well, we get there and everything. Yeah, it's gonna be a blast. It'll be great.
I think so, man. I agree. All right, well let's move on to the next song, Scentless Apprentice.
Right. So, it's the drum beat that I learned how to play drums with. easily. I could probably play it in my sleep, just from practicing it over and over and over again.
Yeah, man, I love it. I mean, it's so good. I love that Dave Grohl has like such a tasteful style of playing. Like I know that he always kind of said that he and Kurt kind of both specifically said, let's try to make this music easy, you know, like make it as simple as possible, but still compelling and heavy and all that. But it's just like those little things, like just that first measure of the drum beat, like the pattern goes like he hits on the snare, and then like the fourth one he hits like on the snare and floor tom or something like that. Like it's a weird flam.
Exactly.
You know, it's so awesome. I love it.
It's one of those great mysterious things to listen to when you're young and you're trying to figure out what you're hearing. You know,
right.
Would you say Dave Grohl is the John Bonham of his generation?
Of the grunge era?
I would say absolutely.
I would say he certainly wants to be.
Yeah. I just like the fact that he makes up drum parts too. You know, like, a lot of people keep the beat, or a lot of people are kind of real busy, but he plays something that's like a part. It's, you know, almost like the guitar to play a part. So it's kind of, I think that's why it's more interesting.
Yeah, I've always loved, you know, that Nirvana drumming.
Right. Yeah, I do too. I think that's kind of something that I think is incorporated, or at least like, you know, kind of maybe part of the discussion of like noise rock is like the way that bands sound. Because like, you know, they specifically went to Steve Albini for the production to get the sound that they wanted, because they kind of get more of like the live sound that would represent their band better. And so you got those drums. Those are very kind of like typical of like noise rock bands, is that kind of not necessarily in the front, but definitely heavier, definitely more accentuated. You know, I don't want to say tinny, but just booming. Bass, obviously, like a good low end, but a little chunky, little like trebly, you know, so you can kind of like hear the strings kind of like clanking. And then obviously the guitar, it depends on the guitar player, but you know, I think it's very typical for aluminum neck Travis Bean style guitar players. That's kind of synonymous with noise rock. But I mean, Kurt didn't play one. Obviously, you could get away with a Stratocaster or something, just weird high ends, weird noisy solos, stuff like that.
Yeah, I actually had and not to brag, but had the privilege of recording in that studio where they recorded.
Pachyderm?
Pachyderm Studios. And the room where he recorded his guitar is like non-parallel walls. And one of the walls is just completely marble or granite or something, just like polished, smooth stone.
Really?
And so you get, and if you play guitar in there, you can almost hear the similar echo, like how they recorded the room, you know, in that record. If you just kind of like are playing in the right spot, it was just kind of ghostly and awesome to just stand there and hear it. You know?
Right.
It's a cool place.
It sounds like it. I mean, that's interesting as hell.
It's in Minnesota.
Yeah, it's kind of like recording in a bathroom, right? You get all that kind of like weird natural reverb. Yeah.
But it's like, awesome. You know, it's purposely not parallel, so you get this non-equal, you know, sound ricochet, whatever you would call it, and but it sounds very particular.
Interesting. Yeah. And do they use that room specifically for guitar all the time, or are they just kind of like whatever?
I know that they did for that record. Like they use that room to do all the lead parts and rhythm parts and everything.
Oh, okay.
When you go there, everybody was like, you know, has all the answers in the world that you have about the recording session in Utero. So walk you through everything.
Cool, man. That sounds great. What a great experience. All right, so Scentless Apprentice. This song represents a new era of songwriting for Kurt. The song is based on the novel Perfume by Patrick Suskind. And so lyrically,
that's Matt's favorite book.
Is it really? Have you read it?
Yeah.
No? You have watched the movie? I guess they made a movie about it too with what's her name? Can't remember her name. That beautiful blonde from King Kong. Jessica
Owen Wilson?
No, I don't know. I can't remember. Jessica Lange? Is that right?
Jessica Lange, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
the original, the King Kong from the 70s with the dude.
70s. Yeah, not the 50s or 40s one, whichever one it was. So let's see. So it keeps fairly true to that story in a poetic way. Whereas prior he would work mostly with cut-ups of pieces of random poems and lyric fragments he had. So what do you think was the farthest reach for you on your latest album? Like where is your like least comfort level? Like where is your farthest reach on the record?
Probably include. John, I don't know.
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's the first song on the second side.
What is it? First song on the second side is All Black Crown, right?
Oh yeah, probably that song. I don't know. That's not. That's actually the last song on the first side. God, I don't know. And that's a tough question to answer. I mean, on any given day, I would, hate everything and think everything's too far of a reach.
Right.
But I mean, there's songs on there that we don't really play anymore, but not because I don't know. As far as answering, what was too far of a reach, I'm not 100% sure what I would consider.
What about the middle source bridge part of Burn? That's the first song, right?
Yeah.
Burn,
Yeah, there's like a weird.
It's not like it's bad, but we're just like trying to do a bunch of stuff to try to give it more.
Yeah, and we sort of
substance or something.
Yeah, and it kind of. I hope it doesn't come across as like a weird like breakdown part. It sort of does in hindsight. That's kind of not the way I meant it at the time. I guess that would be
It's worth more
an answer to. I guess maybe stuff like that is a bit of a reach, and sometimes I do think about it when I'm when we're playing the song.
I'm trying to think of what do we struggle the most with trying to get you like vocal takes and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's always lyrics that I will second and third guess forever.
Sure, I'm sure, but as far as kind of getting it down on record, like what do you think was the hardest part about it?
Probably getting the vocals right, or at least to a place that I liked them. I mean, that's always the hardest part for me, anyway.
What about like tracks like Full Blown Woman in Feathers? Like those are probably the noisiest, kind of like most chaotic tracks.
Yeah.
On the record. I don't remember anything particularly difficult about like tracking those vocals, but did you struggle with them?
It's in some ways, sure. It's not like I just walk in and knock it out and one take and it's like that. So so I mean, there's always a lot of rethinking while doing the vocals and
Sure, yeah. I feel
changing things and rewriting.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of pressure on the singers all the time because it's like that's the last thing you do. It's just like you have an awesome record and you're like, oh, now I gotta fuck this up and like sing on this. It's great.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's good. That's I'll look into those songs again. I'll give them another listen and see what I come up with as far as like how I perceive them now with your input.
Okay.
All right. So let's move on to the next song, Heart Shaped Box. I don't really
I was not into Heart Shaped Box. I thought that was like the weakest song. I've never heard that one.
Which song?
Yeah, I
love
really
that song. It's incredible. You think every time it comes on the radio and like the local rock radio station, it still stands out like.
Oh yeah, it's
way more, and
it's
like
anything from the radio.
Appalling that was like a number one song. When you think about what you hear as number one song now, what is it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I've no idea.
It's definitely not someone talking about eating cancer.
Yeah, I know. To get those lyrics on the radio, that was cool.
Guitar solo is like very abrasive sounding. It's like also cool about all the guitar solos on not all of them, but most of them on In Utero are just random noise, whatever that he's making. So it's impossible to learn what's happening. So when you're like listening to it when you're younger, you're just trying to figure out how to play those parts that are unplayable, and sometimes you come up with something interesting on your own.
Yeah. that's kind of leads into kind of songwriting for the most part. You know, sometimes
Yeah,
you
pretty
try
much,
to
yeah.
learn something and you can't. You're just like,
Mhm.
oh, this sounds cool too. I'll just use this.
Yeah, this is the way my dumb hands do it. So I guess I
Yeah.
got nothing else.
Sure.
Do.
So I don't really have anything to say about this song. You know, I mean, like, it's their biggest song on the record, you know, but there's one thing that sticks out to this song about me, which is actually from my own personal history, was that I was never really good in school. Like in high school, I by the time I reached my senior year, I nearly flunked out. Like I just didn't give a shit anymore. I was just so fed up with everything. But I had a few teachers that really kind of stuck out to me, and usually, you know, did or said something that kind of stuck out to me. And usually, for some odd reason, it always had to do with Nirvana. So in my senior year, my creative writing teacher, this woman named Miss Morenzi, and bless her wherever she is,
Sounds
'cause
cool.
I loved her, and I still love her. I don't know what she's doing anymore. I don't know where she is, but she had pointed out in our creative writing class that lyrics in this song, one of the lyrics is "cut myself on angel hair and baby's breath," which I remember her asking the class. She was just like, what do you think this means? Like, what do you think he's saying when I read you these lyrics?" And then no one knew. Everyone was just like, I don't, no, I don't really know. And she was just like, I'm sensitive. I'm fragile. I'm delicate. Like if I can cut myself on angel's hair, like what is angel's hair? It's a, you know, fragile, thin, you know, fine pasta, you know, baby's breath. It's just like, what's softer than that?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I think any of his lyrics are open to interpretation. You
Of
know,
course. Yeah.
I
And there's
think
a
he did it
lot to
on
interpret on this
purpose that
record.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can interpret things. But
I don't need to
Absolutely.
be laughing at your question. I was just
That's
thinking of terrible things that I could say that to the question, what's softer than baby's breath? I won't say anything.
Hit me.
we're just juxtapositioning too, you know, just like putting it in a possible situation, like getting cut on something that you can't, you know, just
Sure.
couldn't
I
get
mean,
cut on or something too soft, you know.
right. But I mean, I think that it
Juxtapositioning
made it,
two things against each other as cool lyrics. But yeah, he was just so able to do that in a way that all of his lyrics just sounded so cool, and like even if you didn't know like what he was talking about, it was just like, oh yeah, that's why it's like the coolest thing I've ever heard. You know, I'm gonna
Mhm.
scribble it on all of my notebooks. You know,
Yeah, man. No, I agree. I've always loved it. Don't know if I could actually honestly say I've ever understood it, like everything, but
yeah,
as you said, you know, it's all open to interpretation. You know, you pull out whatever you want, really,
yeah,
whatever makes you feel right.
yeah.
So next song, "Rate Me." I don't want to cover that song.
Fine.
Yeah, it's just like it's been beaten to death, really.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not much to say about it. So then after that is Frances Farmer Will Have Her Revenge on Seattle. That's a great one.
yeah.
I
Awesome
love that
song,
song. Yeah.
catchy.
I think that what I always love is the hidden wood blocks that lead out from every chorus into every verse.
Oh yeah.
If you listen to it, next time you listen to it, there's wood blocks back there.
Oh yeah. Right. I
It's a
always
nice
kind of thought
touch.
I thought it was like toy
It's something
piano
like
or
that. I don't
something.
know
Or
what it is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, auxiliary percussion.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there is some weird stuff in here. I mean, for the most part, for being like a really raw record, I mean, for the most part, this was recorded all live, but they did do some weird like overdubs that were kind
Yeah,
of hard to place, I think. That one being one. There was some I believe there's some tambourine and there's certain
I was
definitely some
just gonna
shaker.
say the tambourine placement in this song is top notch too.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's I don't have anything for that song either. So the next song would be Dumb. So, all right. So this is kind of, you know, the first sad track on the record. I think it's great. I mean, I think I have a soft
Yeah.
spot in my heart for a ballad.
I love the quality of his voice in this song. I just always like the way he sings it.
Yeah,
Right.
It's kind of there's like a crack or a blemish or something in that last verse that he sings. I always like that part.
Mm, I agree. I mean, I think it's a very touching song, and Kurt's daughter, Frances Bean Cobain, actually offered her own interpretation of this song in an interview with Rolling Stone, saying, "I cry every time I hear that song. It's a stripped down version of Kurt's perception of himself on drugs, off drugs, feeling inadequate, to be titled The Voice of a Generation." I have to say I agree with that sentiment. I mean, uh, as a matter of fact, the the part I love most about this song is the weird dynamic at the end where, he sings the lyric, "I think I'm dumb or maybe just happy."
Yeah.
And there's this like kind of throughout the song, there's this back and forth of this like, well, like, am I dumb or am I just happy? Kind of implying like, well, being happy is kind of dumb, or vice versa, or like, if you're truly happy, you're being kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it's hard to know exactly what he meant. I'm not going to disagree with his daughter, though. But
DNA don't lie.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it could, one way you could interpret it is just like one of his like sly backhanded, ways of saying that if you're, happy, you don't really think about things enough, or,
Or
Yes.
it's just like a
dumb
I think it might
redneck
be just like
kind of thing.
ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Expanding on that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he definitely was quoted somewhere. I don't remember the quote exactly, so I can paraphrase. Is that like he wishes that he could be just as simple as everybody else and be like entertained by like watching 10 hours of TV or something stupid
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So I guess it leads me to ask you the question, like, would you rather be blissfully ignorant or painfully aware?
Well, after being too painfully aware for too long, I would love to taste some blissful ignorance.
Yeah,
But
right.
no, I don't know.
What happened? The worst is if you're painfully ignorant. I mean, that's just.
Yeah. I mean, to choose between it, I mean, you'd have to. I would rather not be dumb, I suppose. Not that I'm a great scholar, but I would have to choose the more depressed answer.
Painfully aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see how you can not be.
I would take blissful ignorance.
You have it.
Surprise!
I win.
You win at life, man. That's all you need. Oh, it's great. No, I agree. I mean, it's a fine balance, a delicate balance, of like kind of trying to be up on things and kind of be aware of like all the horrible shit that's going on in the world and being able to process it without wanting to kill yourself.
Yeah, that's the other part. It's so hard to just look at everything that's happening. Every day the news just gets worse, and it's like, oh God,
Well, exactly. I mean, and that's what he lived, I mean, that's like the thing is just like, I mean, you can say that his fame was kind of, part of the problem because, I mean, you're under a microscope by people you don't even know, like, like.
Yeah, to be. I mean, no one could imagine what. Maybe very few people in the world could imagine what it's like to be that famous. Like all of a sudden from coming from a small town. I mean, that's.
Right.
I'm having some very real like internal conflicts about whether he actually wanted it to. I mean, I think that was a big struggle with like not being comfortable with it at all. There are a lot of people that get famous and love fame, or at least like the idea of being famous, but maybe struggle with some, invasion of privacy stuff. But like, I think because he was like, he came up listening to punk rock. He was like a punk rock kid.
Right.
He had like he was conflicted about like, I hate myself for doing what I'm doing, but I also like want to be. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
I actually
See
read.
where I'm going with that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I read in a book actually by his former manager, Danny Goldman, I believe his name was.
Yeah, I read that book. Might be right there.
Do you have it right there? Really?
Yeah, I might.
Like Kurt was full of contradictions because obviously he wanted to live up to this punk rock aesthetic of being kind of independent and grungy and kind of DIY, but he would also kind of keep track of sales and stuff. Like he probably knew sales just as good, if not better, than his manager did. Like he would correct
I didn't
people.
know that.
Yeah, I mean, he was like on top of. I mean, so it's weird. I mean, like fame is one thing, having to deal with like invasion of privacy from people and so forth. But yeah, there's some benefits to it, I guess.
I feel like it's possible that heroin might muddy some of that up too a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not drug shaming. I'm just saying that it's part of the equation, at the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that and like depression and just like a.
And just constant boring too, man.
Yeah, they did play a lot of shows.
That beats you up.
Right.
That's a hard life to live too. I've never done that much of it. I've never done enough to know that people fucking do it all the
Probably a
time.
little bit easier with Nirvana money though, you know,
Yeah, big goals
Yeah.
come out of
On
that.
a-
Okay.
on a bus that you're not afraid is going to break down, and if it does, you know, another one comes right up along behind.
They didn't start out that way. I mean, they
No,
didn't
no,
really have a
obviously.
very long period.
But if we're talking
Boring.
about like fame,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, they shot straight up,
True.
like instantly.
They did.
That's got to be a lot to
Pretty-
deal with for anyone.
Yeah.
I remember they changed venues in mid-tour to accommodate more people because of how fast they rose to
Yeah.
popularity. You know.
Right. Yeah. No, it must be a mind fuck. It's got to be a mind fuck, you know?
I don't
Because
know.
it's one thing to do it over all these years. I mean, like, you know, even Mets that they're celebrating their 10th year anniversary, you know, and it's just like, and they're not at that point, you know, but they're still, I mean, they obviously have a level of success where they can kind of know where they're going to be going as far as like, you know, the bigger venue, like, kind of know what their crowd's going to be.
Yeah,
Instead of just like, you know, bootstrapping it, like get in the van, let's see who shows up tonight, you know, that type of thing.
yeah, but I mean, they started that way too. You know, all bands
Exactly.
do, I guess. But
Right. But it's like 10 years. That's like really gradual, you know, it's like
Oh,
they've been
yeah.
on this trajectory. Whereas
Yeah.
like,
but I mean, I
Nirvana
feel
just-
like they've been playing big shows for a while though. I mean,
yeah,
it's not like they're just starting to play huge shows. I mean, they, you know, obviously did like basements and stuff, you know, in Canada when they, you know, before they got on Sub Pop. But I think after Sub Pop, you know, they started getting on festivals and things, it seemed like. And then, you know, they did organically grow the fan base just from being, you know, awesome. You know, the first two records were amazing. But yeah, they're another band that just did a ton of touring, you know, just tons of shows.
yeah,
That's,
no, I know.
It's really how you have to do it.
Yeah, I guess so. All right. Well, let's see. Let's move on to the next side. We're going to be on the B side of the record now, which I personally prefer. I think this is the stronger side of the record if you're listening to this on a record.
Yeah.
I would agree. Although Sentinel's Apprentice, you know, yeah, I would agree though, as a whole.
Yeah, and actually, that's kind of their thing. If you really think about their records, I mean, like thinking about Nevermind, I mean, the B side is the heavier rock side, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Same with Bleach.
Yeah, yeah. I that's just the way they planned their records, I guess. But so yeah, this side is great. Starts off with Very Ape.
Yeah, it's great.
Brave is incredible.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I mean, I think
Catchy.
I always love that it starts at like I don't know if they just cut the tape so it starts in the middle in a weird way in the middle of it playing the guitar riff, but like it takes you
It doesn't line up
listening
at
to
first.
it. It takes you like a couple of years of listening to it to know when the drum part comes in and stuff. 'Cause it's like
oh yeah,
so
it's
I think
weird.
it's supposed to like throw you off at first on purpose.
It's a weird off time signature. Like
Yeah.
it's like a weird fill. It's like a half beat late or something.
Yeah.
And it
I
comes
think it's a
in.
weird cut. Isn't it different on the Albini mix? You listen to the Albini
Well,
mix,
I think
2013
I
one?
think that they cut that part, but they just leave in this like droning lead part that's over top of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Albini cut is incredible. Also, have you listened to that?
I think I have, but I think it's been a while.
reissue from 2013.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think I've listened to it like
2013
once,
mix is a
maybe.
little bit different.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've been
Yeah,
listening to
yeah,
the
it's cool.
original, the
Yeah.
original mix.
The original one is the best.
It is surprising. I was surprised that Albini's mixes don't sound quite as cohesive or something.
Yeah.
It's the original. I forget. Was it Andy Wallace?
Yeah.
That who mixed?
No,
Or Scott Litt?
Scott Litt.
Steve Albini originally mixed it, but then 3 tracks they had sent out to be remixed by Scott Litt, who
Scott Litt.
famously
Yeah.
works with REM.
Oh yeah.
So, and it was all
Or
the
the ones
major
they thought
tracks.
would be the radio songs,
Yeah,
right?
all
Right.
Apology, the Heart Shaped Box, and something else.
No, it was
Penny Royalty.
Penalty.
Yeah, it was the poppier songs on the record. Yeah, they all kind of got that treatment.
Yeah.
So let's see. So nothing to really say about Very Ape. I mean, I just think that this whole B side is basically the epitome of noise rock as far as like, you know, its connection to whatever noise rock is really. So next song is Milk It. Don't really have anything for this song either.
I think Milk It might be my favorite song on the record. I love Milk It.
Yeah.
It's like the epitome of like quiet loud.
Yeah,
Right.
Just the power of the drum fills between when the dull steak test beat parts.
Yeah, and the simplicity.
It's just, they're so simple. There's no craziness. It's just like some kind of smack something and then grab something. You know, it's very, very cool.
Yeah, especially the drums. I mean, like it just that's what draws me to it every time. Is just like just listening to what Dave's doing, because like all those breaks, like there's just the kind of the, what do they call that when you grab the cymbal, you kind of mute it.
Yeah, like choking.
Yeah, and just like, oh, it's so good. So here's a jokey good. Here's a joke question: is it doll steak or test meat? Which do you choose?
I'm gonna go with doll steak because I don't really want to be experimented on with the test meat.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I suppose
Doll steak. Okay.
doll steak.
Unanimous.
That's all.
You guys deserve to be in a band. You're all unanimous. Yeah, you all agree on everything.
Did you say doll steak?
I didn't say.
Are you gonna eat the test meat?
I can't choose. I can't choose between them both.
I guess they test meat as actual meat at least instead of the doll steak being just a hunk of plastic.
Yeah, you just don't know what you're gonna get. That's what it is. All right, so look, I'm gonna skip the other songs. I'm gonna skip Penny LT, Radio Friendly Unit Shifter. I love that song, and Tourette's as well. Both of those are two of my favorites. But I'm just gonna skip right down to the end for All Apologies.
Weak.
Weak? You think it's a weak song?
Totally just kidding. I mean, it's it's a little softer for a record and a side that has a harder edge to it, but
right.
It fits. It's an amazing, beautiful, great song.
You don't like the soft stuff. You don't like that.
I like plenty of soft. Baby's breath for that. No, I mean, it's a great song. Really cool riff. I remember learning to play. That was like one of the first riffs I learned how to play when I was like learning all of the Nirvana songs. That's sort of how I learned how to play guitar anyway. So
Nirvana.
Yeah. Like I learned how to play along to like all 3 or 4 records, and that's sort of like just went from there. I never took lessons. I just learned like with tablets or books and like figuring things out.
Okay, yeah.
We were at your clinic on tasteful drum fills too.
Yeah.
In the buried parts, the drum fills you just.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I don't know about you guys. I was doing some reading to prepare for tonight to kind of like find out some research about this record and about the band. I didn't think I was going to, because I was just like, I know this record, fuck it, I'll just go in there and I'll just talk about this record because I love it and I know it. But so I was doing some reading and I'm just like, I really kind of got a little choked up, because like eventually the books that I was reading, it got to that point where it's just like explaining his suicide and like kind of the aftermath of that. And I just remember like looking in this one book. It was like the book from Rolling Stones, compilation of all the interviews and stuff. And just like the photo of like this girl just like crying, and she's got like braces. You can see her braces, and she's just like, beside herself. And I remember.
That was me.
Yeah, no, I remember when I was 14 and then getting the news and how fucking devastated I was. I mean, where were you guys when you heard?
I was sitting in my parents' living room and I saw the MTV News, and Kurt Loder told me. Yeah.
Right.
I honestly don't know if I remember the exact place I was. I mean, I'm sure I saw it on MTV at the time.
I remember more actually, where I was riding in the back of my stepfather's Jeep when I heard of his overdose in Rome on the radio.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
A couple months before that, or weeks before that, whatever it was.
Yeah, I think
that was weird, because I was like, oh man, what would happen if he died? That would be terrible. And then,
right.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, yeah, then he finally does, like shortly after. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's terrible how it all works out, but when obviously they're going to point to that song, because
it took on a different meaning after that.
It's a sad song, and but it's it's beautiful, and after something like that happens, everybody can point to that as like the farewell or whatever, or
right.
But it's the best farewell. Like I was thinking actually about this the other day, because I was listening to you guys know the Purple Mountains, the Silver Jews.
Yeah,
the Silver Jews.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
David Berman was the Silver Jews and moved on to the Purple Mountains. He committed suicide a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And that record is an incredible pre-suicide record. As morbid as that sounds, it's.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Did he mean it that way though when he was writing?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know if he said. Do you think Kurt did? I don't. Who
I
knows?
don't know if he meant it or whatever. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's
on the bright
the
side of suicide is written. He said it.
Yeah. Look on the bright side too. But that's just like one of those, just to be like,
Then he says, "I'm on your side."
yeah.
Matt. You're a little quiet about this subject. I know that you were older at the time. So how did that affect you? And like, did you even kind of care that he had passed away at that time?
I was in high school, and like I said, there was like sort of this I don't know, whatever, this kind of backlash, like some of the friends I was with, like it's sort of anti-Nirvana because we saw other people that we thought were kind of ridiculous in their obsession with Nirvana, and
Sure.
we thought Bad Religion was a better band,
Which is insane. I was going to go on the record to talk about how insane that is.
Well, I don't believe that anymore. Like
Okay.
I've pretty much come full circle now. I mean, like I don't remember being like super impacted, or it didn't hit me that hard. I was like, oh, how about that? Of course, that figures.
Right.
And I came back to In Utero. It's one of those records I keep coming back and listening to, and it's like one of those records that holds up really well, that I listened to when I was in high school, which a lot of stuff doesn't. A lot of Bad Religion doesn't, but like that one does.
Sure.
But at the time, yeah, I was kind of in this. It was a little bit like a,
He was going through a rockabilly phase.
no, that was later. That came a little later on.
It was like Kurt Cobain didn't have an English accent. It wasn't real dark, so he didn't.
Yeah. There weren't any words in there. You had to use a thesaurus to decipher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So not much impact for you, right? Okay.
I wouldn't say that it did. I wouldn't say that it did. And it's funny. I look back now and you feel like sad, more sad about it than I did back then. Like now I feel like, yeah, that really was tragic. That really sucked. Like, damn, he was talented. But back then, it kind of didn't impact me as much. But I was young and dumb, so
Yeah. Well, we all were, but yeah, I mean, he was kind of like our guy. I mean, like I'm speaking for me and Pat, I guess, and then even Mike to a degree, considering we're close to the same age. Being young kids, we were 13, 14 years old. That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it leaves an impression.
It was a huge deal.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he was like our John Lennon. Like he was like that kind of equivalent for our generation.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
for my generation too, there were like I was right in the middle of it too. It was just, it was just me being like too cool for school. Like,
Right.
I'm into real underground music.
Right,
It's kind of like that whole.
No, and I completely get that. I really do, because like that's why, like, just those few years, man, just those few years that you got, just like kind of made that dynamic just that much different, and then like I completely understand it. That's why I asked you, is just like, what were you listening to at that time? Because obviously you already had some of that knowledge of like kind of where, even what kind of inspired Kurt, whereas
I was listening
like
to
me,
Screeching Weasel. That's
Right.
Screeching Weasel.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm sitting next to you.
I mean, I listen to good music. I was listening to the Jesus Lizard and
This
like
guy into my house.
time heals all wounds. It's all right.
I think the two records that got played the most, it's these two weird records that like every time I listen to them, they take me back to the same like period of my life where I was hanging out with the same group of people, like smoking a lot of weed, and like it's 13 Songs by Fugazi and In Utero. Those always hit me with
13
this,
songs, classic drug album.
strangely enough, yeah.
Really?
For me, it is. It brings.
That's funny. Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, I used to hang out with some weird kids.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, we all did. We all were weird kids. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's cool. Hey, I just gotta say, like, I'm sorry I don't have like a good ending question for you guys. I thought I could figure something out with all apologies, but it was just fucking me up. I was just like too overwhelmed, I think, by it.
Yeah.
All right.
That's understandable.
Yeah, but this is a great record. I'm glad that you chose it. I'm glad that we could talk about it for a little bit because very important to me, obviously very important to you, and yeah, it's a classic, and I think that it actually kind of is such a like perfect like connection into the style of music that you guys do and the No Coast Fest and all that stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm proud that it's still part of my main influence. So it's the best record of all time, hands down.
Wow.
Yeah, it's always been a super important, definitely, one of my favorite records, if not my absolute favorite. I mean, like I said, it was definitely the first one that, opened my eyes to, like, wanting to make noise like that and play guitar and,
Right.
Going from learning the songs to starting bands and,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can tell. I mean, it's definitely impactful on you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you for having this talk with me, and I'm looking forward.
Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to seeing you in Texas. Final Vision is a Psychic Static production. Theme song written and performed by Jeff Robbins of the 123 Astronaut.